Welcome everyone. It's beautiful to see you all checking in, sharing where you're getting on in the chat box. We've got people from all over the world, and I'm very happy to be together with you this afternoon to explore the practice of generosity, both a practice of giving and receiving. So we'll start with a guided meditation. Coming into a comfortable position where you can be fully at ease, allowing your body to give all of its weight to whatever you're sitting on, whether that's a cushion or a chair, or even if you're lying down, which you're welcome to do. So I'm going to start us with the sound of the bell, and this is just an invitation to return to this present moment. Many things going on today, many things we did before we sat down, many things we're going to be doing after this class, but this is an invitation with the bell just to release those things and just be right in with your breath, with your body. And just before we begin, that there are, okay, great. The sound seems to be a little better. Okay. So again, just listening to this bell as the voice of your inner teacher that's inviting you to be fully here. So feeling now contact between your body and whatever you're sitting on or lying on. And just allowing all of your weight itself to the earth beneath you. Allowing your body to release tension, especially with your out breath. Just give all of your weight to and let her hold you. As you inhale, being aware of your full body, and with each exhale, letting go, releasing tension. There's nowhere to go, there's nothing to do. Just letting be, letting yourself be just as you are in this moment. Allowing the breath to come in and to come out. You can allow yourself to be breathed. You don't have to make anything happen. To breathe. Just allowing the in-breath and out. letting the breath flow in and out naturally in whatever rhythm it has in this moment. It may be fast, it may be slow, it may be smooth, it may be just releasing any holding, any tightness with each. And bring your attention now to the sensations of the in-breath and the sensations of the out-breath. Notice the air flowing in and flowing out. What is the difference between the in-breath and the out-breath? Is the in-breath cool air? Is the out-breath warmer air? Just notice. How is it for you? And notice any other sensations that might distinguish the in-breath from the out-breath. Maybe one is easier, other smoother. Now as you breathe in, receive the gift of the air that you're breathing in. And as you exhale, offer the gift of the exhale, the air that you're breathing. The in-breath is to each of us. It's the whole cosmos coming together to keep us alive with just the right balance of oxygen and other gases that our body needs to function. So breathe in this gift. And as you exhale, your exhale is also what the whole cosmos needs. It is a gift in exchange. And your exhale is carbon dioxide that the trees take in and transform back into oxygen for your in-breath. So breathing in and out, just feel this flow and connection. It's how you are a part of a larger whole that sustains you with each breath, and that you give back to this larger whole with each breath. A dance of giving and receiving. As you inhale, know that the trees care about you, that the earth wants you and is here for you, providing for your each and every breath. So really take that in. And as you exhale, feel your care for the world around you. Be here for the whole universe, returning the care, playing your part in the world. This breathing with awareness is a way of showing up, being there for yourself and others. Inhaling the care, the support, exhaling your care. The breath is no less than an umbilical cord, like when each of us were a fetus in our mother's womb. Only now the whole cosmos is the womb, and each of us very much wished for a child. So receive the gift of life with the inhale, and return your gift of life, of presence, with the exhale. Offering your gift with each exhale. Breathing in the out-breath of the trees. Breathing out the in-breath of the trees. Enjoying this exchange, this interdependence. I exist because you exist. You exist because I exist. We are not separate. And breathing in now the out-breaths of all the people, animals, and plants on the planet now. Breathing out in-breath of all beings on this planet with us now. So with each inhale and exhale, touching our interdependence with all beings everywhere. We also need just this right ratio of oxygen and gases in order to live. We share this earth with us, we share the sun and the solar system. In and out, receive the gift of the fellowship that we share with all life forms alive on this planet now. And breathing out, offering our true presence, our openness to all beings, to connect. To see our interbeing. Breathing in deep connection with all beings on this planet. We're breathing with us now. Breathing out, offering ourselves to all beings on this planet, for whom we are important, for whom we very much matter. Our decisions, our choices have an impact on all beings on the planet with us now. So our out-breath in awareness is a powerful gift to be. So not only are we connected to all current beings alive now, through the giving and receiving of breath, but we are connected to all past and future generations as well. Breathing in, we are breathing the breath of dinosaurs, saber-toothed tigers, woolly mammoths. We're breathing in the huge meteors that crashed into the planet billions of years ago, that gradually helped to form the atmosphere that we have today, that is perfect for life to flourish. And the out-breath that we're breathing now will become the breath of our descendants, the breath of all future beings. So all of the past and all of the future are here right in this moment with each breath. Touch this hugeness, vastness, that is a short, seemingly limited span of a single breath. Breathing in, receiving all the beings that have existed on this planet before us. And breathing out of all of the beings that will exist on this planet after us. Everything that exists now and that has existed in the past that will come in the future can be touched through the deep connection to and dwelling in our breath. The present moment contains the past and the future. Through this constant giving and receiving, the in-breath and the out-breath, you know that we are not alone. You don't have to worry or be afraid. The universe is taking care of us. The proof is in each breath. The air is there. So we can relax and be like the lilies of the field. We toil not, nor do we worry. Let yourself be part of this amazing, limitless web of connection that we're each a part of. We cannot fall out of this web. We can't drop out of it. Always held and sustained by the truth of our interbeing. Feeling this connection as you breathe in, feeling this connection as you breathe out. The oneness of giver and receiver, no separation. We belong to life. And life and all beings belong to us. Of all beings. To close our meditation, I will invite the sound of the bell. As we listen to the bell, let us feel connected to each other. There are 70 or so online in this call from all over the world, all breathing mindfully together, offering each other the gift of mindful presence. Since I still hear that people are having difficulty with the sound, I'm thinking Giles, I'm just wondering if I should switch to this microphone, if you think that would make a difference. Do a little. Okay, I'll try. Is this better? Okay, sorry for that. So I'd like to share now about the practice of generosity. And for those of you who couldn't hear the guided meditation, so it was recorded, so we can make it accessible to you after this. So the practice of generosity is one of the 6 paramitas in the Mahayana tradition, one of the 10 paramitas in the Theravada tradition. Paramita means a perfection, crossing over to the shore of freedom, of well-being, of ease. So through the practice of generosity, we leave the shore of ill-being, of disconnection, of depression, of stress, and we go towards the shore of freedom. So it's a very important practice, and it's taught by Buddha in many different teachings. So when I think of generosity, I know for many of us growing up in a Judeo-Christian culture in the West, we have inherited or been transmitted an idea of generosity as a should, as something you ought to do. And so can be a sense of duty, a sense of heaviness or pressure that comes when we think of giving or generosity. And generosity is in fact really giving the heart very freely with joy. Where when you give, you feel you have more to give. Thich Nhat Hanh describes a plant in Asia. It's a member of the onion family. And when you cut a leaf or branch of this plant, within 24 hours it grows back even bigger. So he said this is the symbol of generosity, that when you give from your heart, whatever you give, it comes back to you even more. And you give freely without strategizing, without calculating. You just give because it comes from your heart. I had the chance to practice silent retreats in the Vipassana tradition, and listening to Joseph Goldstein, one of the senior teachers at IMS, he shared one of his main messages was that if the desire to give arose in his mind, he wouldn't second guess himself. He wouldn't doubt himself and think, well, I shouldn't give that because I can't afford it, or maybe that person doesn't really need it. There's often an initial impulse to give, and then the mind comes in and says, no, we shouldn't do that. His practice was to listen to the first impulse and not allow the other secondary reactions to that impulse to sway him away from his first impulse to give. And he said that has been a very important practice for him. And I've tried to do that since I learned about that, and I find it very powerful to notice the initial impulse of wanting to give, and then often how many things come after that are some obstacle or that impede that initial wish, and to really work with that and to just give whatever comes from my heart, not to be afraid of that wish. So I have a story about this. I was at a retreat as a participant and had planned already in my mind what I was going to offer as dana, as a cash money donation for the teachers at the end of the retreat. And I was feeling very grateful to the teachings, and towards the end I started to think, I feel like I should give more, because I felt I received so much, and there was a talk, inviting everyone to give, because the teachers just offered their teachings freely, and what we paid was just for the accommodations and food. So I felt so inspired, I decided to give $200 more than I had planned originally. And that was, a lot for my budget, coming out of monastic life and not having a savings. And so I was kind of like, whoa, okay, I'm going to do this and trust. So I did, and I felt really good about it, and I could afford it, but it was just, a lot for me. And so I felt good about it, and that evening I had been leading the chanting in the evenings, so that evening I asked if I could share a special chant from the Thich Nhat Hanh tradition, the Discourse on Love. And I did, and the next morning at breakfast, was the last day of the retreat, and a retreatant who I'd had a brief conversation with the day before, she put an envelope next to me at breakfast, and it just said, "Thank you for the chanting last night. It was beautiful, and here's a little jingle for your pocket." And so I was thinking, a jingle for my pocket? That's a few dollars, which would have been wonderful. Well, I opened up the envelope, and it was $200. Exactly the amount that I had decided to stretch and offer. It came back to me the very next day. And I was stunned, and I actually went to her and checked, "Are you sure that you meant to give all of that? That's a lot." And she said, "Well, someone gave it to me before I came retreat and I didn't need it, and so I wanted to pass it on to you. So it was this experience of being very much in the flow. That when we don't hold on to an impulse to give, when we don't hold ourselves back, we actually open ourselves up to receive. So generosity, the practice of generosity, is really a practice of giving and receiving. This was what we experienced in the meditation. The breath, the in-breath is receiving, the out-breath is a giving. And can you imagine only doing one? Can you imagine only breathing in? You wouldn't survive. And if you only breathed out, you wouldn't survive. So the two go together. So giving and receiving are both a practice of generosity. And I know a lot of people who share that they have no trouble giving. They can really offer a lot. But if someone wants to offer to them, they really struggle. But if you think of it as our breath, then to offer is also to receive. They're not two different things. And what I am learning too is that this impulse to give, it's ours. It's not me, it's not mine. Oh, because I'm a generous person. It's life coming through me saying, oh, I want to offer. And if I clench down on that and don't allow it to flow through me, I'm blocking something that the whole universe needs. It's not just about that one person that I'm offering to. Like this woman, she received something from someone else that got passed on to me, that I'm going to pass on in different ways. So it's not really ours to block. It's just life flowing through us. And when we let it flow out, there is a space created that life can come flow back into and fill us up. And really, the more we receive. And receiving is also a gift. To receive something is a gift because we give someone else the chance to give, which, as we know, is can be so very satisfying and beautiful. So when I was a nun, I went to Vietnam several times with Thai. We called Thich Nhat Hanh Thai, just means teacher in Vietnamese. And we arranged a alms round as monks and nuns walking through the city with an alms bowl in the central city of Hue. And these were very humble people coming to offer us food. They had probably stayed up late at night preparing their nicest little dishes, little steamed buns wrapped in banana leaves and little sweet soups in plastic bags that you could drink. Many, many delicacies. And so the nun's bowl is only that big. The monks is a little bit bigger usually. So our bowl is quite small and we have a lid. So we would stop by each person, open the lid, and they would put in whatever they wanted to offer. And very soon our bowls were full. But just to see the joy of each person putting in this thing that they had really worked and put effort and care into making. So soon our bowls were full. I could hardly put my lid back on. So people wanted so much to offer that they then found plastic to hang over our arms and then began to fill the plastic bags with more food. So we were walking with our bowls and a plastic bag hanging from our elbow. And they just, time they could give, you could see so much joy in their faces. And these are very humble people who lived in material conditions much poorer than the one many of us Western monastics grew up with. And yet they just wanted to give. And I saw so clearly in that moment of receiving, just to receive was a gift, to just be be the opportunity for them to give. So it is also, generosity, dana, is also the practice of opening up to receive the gifts from people around us, to not be ashamed or afraid, to think, I have it all together, I'm independent, I can take care of myself, but to really allow people, allow beings around us to also give to us. So I want to ask you to just think of a time that you gave freely or received something from someone else with no strings, with no expectation, with no sense of owing to them. Just like that, a time where just giving, receiving just flowed through you. If it were a gift that comes to mind, something you received not because you deserved it or earned it, but just because. It could be something as simple as the sunlight streaming through the window, or a dog or cat that came and cuddled with you. Just a gift freely offered to you. Or a time when you gave something freely, just from your heart, without closing down, without calculating or measuring up what you owe them, what they owe you, what you should do, what you shouldn't do. Just something that came from your heart. So just think about a moment when this occurred for you in your life. Close your eyes and connect in with your experience in the body. So a moment of real connection. And just feel how this feels in the body, this opening to the flow of generosity in whatever direction, giving or receiving. Feel it in your body. Notice where you feel it. Where does it live in your body? And what is the feeling in the body? What's it like? Does it have a color? Does it have a texture? Or is there an image that comes to mind? Or a movement, some kind of pattern? Just feeling into what the experience of this kind of generosity, what does it do in your body? So if it's in a place that you can locate easily enough, just put your hands over that part of your body. Or if it's in your hands, then just hold your hands and breathe into this sensation of the effects of generosity. Open yourself to this experience of freely giving, freely receiving a gift that is offered from the heart. Thank you for in with me on that. So there's lots of research now in the field of positive psychology on the effects, physical and mental effects, of allowing generosity to flow through us. And so I just want to share with you this is from the Huffington Post blog by a writer named Advani, a little post on how random acts of kindness can benefit your health. And so she writes, research reveals that doing good deeds or kind acts can make socially anxious people feel better. And I would say can make any person feel better. I think we know that from our own experience. So the University of British Columbia did a study. They assigned people with high levels of anxiety for 4 weeks. They assigned them to do kind acts for other people at least six times a week. The acts of kindness included things like holding the door open for someone, doing chores for people, donating to charity, and buying lunch for a friend. The researchers found that doing nice things for people led to a significant increase in people's positive moods. It also led to an increase in relationship satisfaction and a decrease in social avoidance in people who were socially anxious. So the researchers said, people who engage in kind acts become happier over time. When you're kind to others, you feel good as a person. You're more realistic, more positive. And there's even a biochemical experience. When we engage in acts of kindness, they create emotional warmth, which releases a hormone known as oxytocin. And this reduces blood pressure and protects the heart. So oxytocin is a cardioprotective hormone. It protects the heart. So another researcher in Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine, he serves as the president of the Institute for Research on Unlimited Love. I love this name. So they do research on altruism and compassion and service. And his research shows that when we give of ourselves, especially when we start young, everything from life satisfaction to self-realization and physical health is significantly improved. Mortality is delayed, so it has an anti-aging effect. Depression is reduced, and well-being and good fortune are increased. So we see that what I shared at the beginning about the plant in Vietnam, you cut some of it and it grows back even bigger the next day. When we allow ourselves to be generous, to allow life to flow through us, through kind actions, we get all these benefits back through a much better quality of life. So it is very important also when we give to see this interbeing that we explored in the guided meditation. To not see ourselves as separate from the person or the being that we're giving to. I had an experience recently, and there's a homeless woman who lives near here where I live, and it was a very cold day. This was about a month ago. Very cold, and she was outside, huddled under blankets. And I stopped to ask her, could I buy you something hot to drink? And I was surprised. She said, no, that's okay. Maybe later. And so I persisted. I said, well, is there anything else I could get you? And she said, well, she pulled out a pen. She said, can you get me a pen, a marker just like this? So I had seen her writing in one of the restaurants and huddled in the doorway, just writing. So she's like, can you get me a pen exactly like this one? She was very adamant that it had to be exactly like that one. So I said, well, let me take your pen so I can go find one exactly like this. So I went to the drugstore and I found one, similar enough. She was happy with it. I took it back to her. And that's what she wanted. And I saw in that interaction that I had an idea of what she would want, of what would be good for her. But that wasn't what she wanted to make her happy. So when we give, when we receive, to not have this idea of, I'm here, the giver, you're there, the receiver, and I know what you need. To assume that we know, because we may not. In psychosynthesis, the spiritual psychology, transpersonal psychology, the definition of humility is to see the needs of others as they see them, and to meet those needs if it's practical for us. So this practice of generosity is also respecting, that what we think someone needs may not be what they see as their needs. And so also this practice of not strengthening our own idea of self when we give. That I am giving to you as a separate person, separate being. I recently heard a beautiful story from Tara Brach. She described a friend of hers who had just been trained as a doula. Doulas that word is often meaning someone who accompanies a birth, a mother giving birth. But in this case, he was trained as a doula to accompany someone in their dying process. So he had chosen to especially assist people who were low income and who didn't have family around them. So the first person he was going to assist was a man who had throat cancer and couldn't speak. So he arrived there, and the man was gesturing and trying to point out something to this friend, the doula. And so the doula was looking around, trying to see, what was he pointing to? Was he pointing to the bathroom? The man shook his head. Did he need something over there? The man shook his head. Finally, the doula went and helped the man get up. And they took a few steps, pointed to the refrigerator, his refrigerator in his kitchen, and then he pointed to the doula. And he was saying to the man, eat. I want you to eat something. So the doula was very moved because he had this idea that he was coming to offer and to help and to serve. And then, he wasn't encountering a man who saw himself as a victim. He was encountering someone who had this dignity of a host. And yes, even I'm dying, but I have something to offer you. I want you to eat and to serve you. So I thought it was such a beautiful story of this interbeing, of giving and receiving, that when we give, we shouldn't get caught in this temporary identity as the giver and get caught in this idea that the other is the receiver. But we have a phrase in Buddhism that giver and receiver are one. So in an act of giving, it can be an act of receiving. Just as an act of receiving can be an act of giving. So I want to end the talk there and just share that if you appreciate this class and this opportunity to practice with people from all over the world each week, we ask that you support Worldwide Insight and the teachers as I live off of Dana, and so your support enables me to continue teaching and Worldwide Insight to continue to offer this wonderful resource to so many. So there is a button next to the video to make a donation. And we're very grateful for your support. And so now we have some time, half an hour for questions and sharings, reflections. And you're very welcome to stay on the call after 30 minutes of sharing and Q&A is over to chat and connect with each other from all your different locations. So if anyone has any questions. Or any experiences you want to share from the meditation or from the talk. Okay, so one question has come in. What are some ways to access generosity when one is feeling depleted or emotionally overwhelmed? Thank you for that question. Very important. So, when we're feeling depleted and overwhelmed, I think the practice of generosity is to give to ourselves, because that is a very important practice of generosity, is to really take care of ourselves and be for ourselves. Because you can't give to others if we are depleted. So that's not the time to engage in a lot of flow. When we feel overwhelmed, we need to come back and really give ourselves the love and the acceptance and the care that we need. So having some, having a list of things that we know really helps us to feel replenished is a wonderful thing to post somewhere, so we can remember, when I really don't feel I have much to give, I can take a bath, I can take a walk, I can journal, I can meditate, I can talk to a friend, I can make a really nourishing meal, I can take a nap. I mean, like, it's good to have kind of a toolbox and really good self-care practices that we can go to when we need to take care of ourselves. And so, it's important to know when to close the doors and close the windows and not be giving out. We need to just come back and settle, take care of ourselves, and make the environment inside cozy again so that we have something to offer. So all this flow of generosity that I spoke of is very much includes ourselves. It's not just that we offer to others. We are included in all beings, right? So being generous means being generous to ourselves as well. So we need to be part of the equation all the time. So I hope that was helpful for your question. Dana, thank you. Thank you, Dana. So the next question is, your mention of the link between generosity and reduction of social anxiety is interesting to me, as I suffer quite a bit from this condition. I find that it does close me off and make it very hard to connect with people and give of myself. Do you have any suggestions for getting past that block? Thank you, Sharon, for your question. I think it's good to start incrementally, to make little baby steps. Smiling at someone I love to smile to children. That's a way to practice generosity, both giving and receiving. But it doesn't take much to hold the door open for someone, or maybe with people that you already know that are in your close circles. Sending a gift, doing something even anonymously that doesn't involve face-to-face interaction, if that's where the anxiety arises. Writing a kind note to say thank you to someone. If a server has been kind to you on the, at a restaurant, or at a, like at the post office, there are all these things now where people want your feedback on the airplanes, and to give feedback, appreciating someone is a way to give, and that's done anonymously. Write, to call, to do things maybe if in person is too difficult, to make gestures, through the mail, through email, through phone calls that express appreciation, that express gratitude, to send a little gift for someone on their birthday, or out of the blue for no reason, just to send a gift. People make beautiful things for other people to discover. If you go on a walk in your park, or if there's a path that many people take sort of in nature, and some people make little stone sculptures, a beautiful pile of leaves in the shape of a heart, and leave it behind as a kind of gift. So there's lots of ways to bring joy to people without maybe putting yourself in a situation that creates anxiety for you right off the bat. And then as you feel that flow, beginning to work in you, I believe it will give you confidence. And then you can try the next little baby step of doing a small gesture in person. Maybe if it's easier with someone you don't know, you could try with people you don't know, or if it's easier with people you do know, then trying small gestures of kindness with people that are close to you. So, staying connected with your body is a really important practice here. So as you notice anxiety arising, taking some breaths and getting back in touch with your impulse, with what you really want, which is to offer and to connect and to open your heart to them. So staying connected to that in the midst of the fear. The fear doesn't have to cut you off completely. So the fear can be there, the anxiety can be there. You can smile to it, say, hello, anxiety, I know you're there. It's okay that you're there. Generosity is also here, so I'm going to also pay attention to generosity and not only to the fear. And then just, with the breath, with connecting to your body, with opening to your experience, just see if you feel more at ease to go ahead and initiate something. So I hope that's helpful, Sharon. Thank you for the question. Yeah, thank you. Okay, we have a third question or a comment. I love what you said about how giving is as beneficial to me as it is to the receiver. I have been inclined to hold myself in, and this is something that I need to continually be aware of. I think that's from Molly. Yeah. Yeah, I see that when I think about the impulses I have to give, I experience that if I hold myself back, something gets blocked inside of me, and it's actually not good for me if I don't honor that impulse. It's like something in me gets a little bit shut down, and I'm more fearful. I'm less connected. It's like I also feel I missed an opportunity. There's just less. There's less of a sense of connectedness in my world. So I think it's a gift to ourselves to give. A friend of mine told me that a study was also done about happiness and what creates the most lasting kind of happiness. And they found that when people buy something and they acquire a new material possession, they have a small amount of happiness, and it dissipates very quickly. The second level is when they learn something new, when they or go to a new place, then they have a deeper happiness than the first kind, and it lasts longer. But the study found that the deepest happiness that lasts the longest is when we do something for someone else. So again, another example of how much we receive ourselves when we open ourselves to giving. So thank you for that comment, Molly. Going over now to the question box. Okay, there's a question from John. How is the experience as a layperson compared to monastic life? Thanks for that question, John. Well, I say this whenever I'm asked, because it's true. I was happy as a nun. I really appreciated and loved life. And so I didn't leave because I wasn't inspired by that way of living. I left because I felt that cycle of my life, that period of my life, had come to a natural end, and a new period was needing to be born. I was trying to just honor what I was really sensing from inside of me. So what I can say now is I'm a happy layperson, that it's been a real transition, and there's been a lot of adjustments to make. I was a nun for 15 years. And I've not been a layperson for even a year yet. It's still new, 9 or 10 months. But as I spoke about in the guided meditation, that when we touch this flow of life coming in us and flowing out of us, we are getting in touch with a web that we are part of. And we can't fall out of that web, That web is there for us. When we really touch this interbeing, we touch that we can't ever be really alone. because we only exist because of every other being that exists. So I did have some fear before I left monastic life. I would lose some important elements of my spiritual practice, or I was certainly afraid of the feeling of not belonging to it anymore, or really being alone and lonely. And what I found is, we have a song in the Plum Village tradition that the lines are, one line of this song says, "The Sangha body is everywhere, my true home is right here." And I hadn't touched the real meaning of that in the way I touched it after I disrobed and I began to teach in different sanghas all over the world, and I found that, wow, yes, the monastic sangha was a hugely important nurturing environment for me, and the lay sanghas are also my sangha. And so traveling all over the world, teaching and seeing the sangha body really everywhere, and I really touched my true home is right here. Everywhere I went, if I was practicing mindfulness, I found my home. So that's why I say, I was a happy nun and I am a happy layperson now. And I have the great joy to have a livelihood that is very much a continuation of the way I lived as a nun. I mean, I'm a Dharma teacher, so I teach and I share mindfulness for a living, and so that wasn't such a big shift for me in terms of the essence or the inner quality of my life. So I've been very grateful to have friends and family and mentors supporting me. I needed a lot of support to make this transition. I'm still making the transition, but I feel like I continue to do what's most important to me, and can do it with others who also see the spiritual as the center of their life. So that's a huge support to be able to practice with others. So thank you for that question, John. I'm just scrolling to see. Okay, so now Carolyn has asked a question. Do you think the world exists on two different levels, spiritual and kind of contrived? Oh, that's a question from Nikki. Do you think the world exists on two different levels, spiritual and kind of contrived? Thank you for that question, Nikki. Well, I think that's how I would say I see it too. There's we use the words in Buddhist lingo, language, as ultimate and the historical dimension. So on the historical dimension, there's up and down, there is inside and outside, there is you, there is me. I mean, we need certain terms to just exist in the normal world, to go shopping and to live in a house. That's the historical dimension of a birth and a death, and us and them. But in addition to the historical dimension, there is the ultimate dimension, the dimension of no separation. If in the ultimate dimension there's up or down, right? I mean, if you were to zoom out into outer space, how could you say there's what's up and what's down? There's no gravity there. So it's like that with the ultimate dimension. The conventional things that we need to operate on the historical dimension no longer apply. The dimension, I am made up of only non-me elements. You are made up of only non-you elements. The sunshine, the earth, your parents, your teachers, the food you eat every day. All of that's what keeps you alive, what has formed you. So you can't say that you exist separate from those things. So, but the ultimate dimension isn't necessarily more true or more real than the historical dimension. You need both, and you touch the ultimate dimension through the historical dimension. You don't get around the historical dimension and avoid it to get into the ultimate dimension. So when you say kind of contrived, we don't want to have a discrimination towards the historical dimension, because that's the dimension which allows us to have a body and to breathe and to connect with other human beings and to develop ourselves and our wisdom. So the historical dimension may be only part of the reality, but it's an important part of the reality. And we need to also be able to recognize the limits of the historical dimension, that it doesn't describe the fullness of who we are. It can only really be seen in the historical dimension, but we need to see it through the historical dimension, not outside of the historical dimension. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm not sure. And so, and another part of Nikki, your question is, and are you talking of spiritual generosity? And similarly, I think generosity needs to be seen again in both historical and ultimate dimensions. So there's a beautiful story of the Buddha. A homeless, destitute person came to hear a Dharma talk, and the Buddha saw this person and said to the monks, please go feed him before he listens to the talk, because he knew if he tries to listen and he's hungry, he's not going to receive the spiritual teaching. So the Buddha was very practical and wanted to make sure this man had food in his belly, and then he started the talk. So the Buddha was practicing generosity on both dimensions, the historical dimension and the ultimate. I think we don't want to discriminate and say generosity is spiritual generosity, or we need all forms of generosity. We need to be able to provide material support when that's what's needed, and we need to be able to provide. I think I sent out in the description of this class that there are 3 kinds of giving in Buddhism, 3 kinds of gifts. One is material, the second is the gift of the Dharma, and the third is the gift of non-fear. So they're all forms, very important forms of generosity. When we give the gift of Dharma, we give the gift of self-confidence, self-sufficiency, believing in oneself, having a path. And when we give the gift of non-fear, we help relieve in others the fear of death, the fear of insecurity, of worry, of the fear of illness. All are very important gifts, and they all inter-are. So thank you for your question, Nikki. Yes. Okay. I don't know if there's any more questions. Okay. We have a few more minutes if anyone has any other questions. Oh, I did want all of us actually to based on the research that I shared today, to think of a way we could do an act of kindness, to just think of something we might each do to reach out and connect to someone, maybe someone we haven't been in touch with for a while, or someone who just lives by, a neighbor, a friend, a family member. And just, put into practice these teachings. So to really just something small, but something from the heart, a way to offer to some person or to some being close by or far away, but to think of what we might be able to do today to practice generosity. I see there are two. Yes, thank you, Dana. And Sharon says, I'm fairly new to Buddhism. Do you have a favorite book that you recommend to beginners? I think the book Peace is Every Step by Thich Nhat Hanh. I'll just put that in the chat. Sometimes it's hard to spell his name. Is a wonderful book for beginners, but for everybody. But it is a beautiful book. It's in short little pieces, very short, page or 2-page long sections, and it's one of the earlier books that Thai wrote. But that's a very good book. There are some wonderful small pocket books that Thich Nhat Hanh has written that have been published recently. One is called How to Sit, another is called How to Walk, another is called How to Eat, and another is How to Love. And those are little pocket books that could be helpful. So, yes, you're welcome. I just wanted to give an example of these little acts of kindness that we can do today or every day. Take up a little generosity practice that we do every day. I'm going to tell you about a friend of mine who every morning she goes out and puts a few seeds on this rock for the squirrels. So every morning before she eats, before she makes her breakfast, she makes a little offering for the animals that live around her. So we can always practice generosity around food. I feel generosity is such kind of food is a natural area where generosity can arise, because 3 times a day we're receiving a gift from the whole cosmos. So I have a friend who is a Native American from the Pueblo Indian tribe, and whenever she eats, she takes a small bit of her food, just a little crumb, and breathes on it and offers it. So she doesn't eat, she offers it. And so, also in the Zen tradition, before we would eat a formal meal, we would make an offering to the altar sometimes. In some traditions, everybody takes a little bit of the food in their plate and puts it on a tiny little bowl, and then that goes on the Buddha altar, or put outside onto the ground. So, taking some time around your eating to have a practice with food is a beautiful practice. And also, in my family, something we do is we share 3 things that we're grateful for before we eat, when we sit down to a meal together. And so that could be a practice of reflecting about 3 things you're grateful for before you eat. So we are coming to the end of our time together, and I want to really thank all of you for joining, and to thank everyone at Worldwide Insight for this chance to practice and be together in this way. And I wish you all lots of success and fruit and lots of joy in your path of practicing generosity, both in giving and receiving. Thank you. Wish you well.